More than 300 piles of human remains were found south of the valley this summer. Well, now we've learned investigators have tied 3 of those piles to 3 different people. Now, it is unlikely there will be more identifications, though.
The Mojave Desert keeps its secrets well, 60 miles south of the Las Vegas Strip, off U.S. Highway 95. The land opens into a flat, brown expanse of creosote and gravel that has changed very little in 10,000 years. The town of Searchlight sits at the edge of it. Population, roughly 500. Once a gold mining camp, now a place travelers pass through on their way somewhere else. The wind here moves without obstruction. Mountains rise pale in the distance. The silence is the kind that presses against your ears. On the morning of July 28, 2025, a local man was walking through that silence when he spotted something on the ground that did not belong. At first glance, it resembled spilled cement or sand of an unusual color. He stepped closer. Then he noticed another pile, and another, and another. Spread across the desert floor in rough clusters sat more than 300 small gray-white mounds, each one about the size of a dinner plate, each one holding what had once been a human being. He did not call the police. He called a television station. He reached out to the 8 News Now investigators at KLAS in Las Vegas, and within days, a crew stood in the desert beside him, looking down at the same impossible sight. The Bureau of Land Management, the federal agency that oversees this stretch of public land, confirmed what the eye already suspected. The piles were cremains, pulverized human bone, the remains of people, hundreds of them. This is the story of what happened next, and what did not happen next, and the quiet American crisis that this desert, by accident, exposed. To understand what surfaced near Searchlight, you have to understand what cremated remains actually are. The word ashes misleads us. When a body is cremated, the soft tissue burns away in a chamber heated to roughly 1,500 degrees. What remains is bone, calcified, brittle, recognizable. That bone then goes into a machine called a cremulator, which grinds it down into a coarse, sand-like powder. It weighs more than ash. It does not blow away on the wind. In physical terms, it stands almost indestructible. A pile of cremains on the desert floor will sit there, undisturbed, for years, possibly decades, possibly centuries. When the KLAS crew looked closely at the piles outside Searchlight, they spotted something else too. Pieces of plastic, small severed loops of zip tie. The kind of zip tie that crematories use to seal the plastic bags holding cremains before they go inside an urn. And scattered among the piles, fragments of those urns, broken pottery, cracked plastic shells. Someone had not simply scattered ashes here. Someone had driven out into the desert with hundreds of sealed bags, cut them open one by one, dumped the contents on the ground, and left the packaging behind. Then, not far from the first site, investigators discovered a second one. Another dump. More piles. By the time the full inventory was complete, the count had climbed to approximately 315 human beings, abandoned on federal land, an hour south of the brightest city in America. The Bureau of Land Management maintains a clear policy on this. Individuals are permitted to scatter the cremated remains of a loved one on public land. A widow can drive into the desert with her husband's urn and let the wind carry him into the brush. A son can climb a ridge and release his mother into the sky. That is legal. That is in many ways beautiful. What is not legal is the commercial distribution of cremains on federal land. A business cannot do what an individual can do. A funeral home cannot use the desert as a disposal site. And yet, the evidence on the ground pointed in only one direction. The zip ties, the urn fragments, the sheer scale. 315 separate piles, each one prepared in the same way, each one dumped in the same place. This was not 300 individual families making 300 individual decisions. This was an operation, a delivery, a choice made by someone in the business of handling the dead. Sources told KLAS what was already becoming obvious. The dumping was almost certainly tied to a commercial funeral home. But no funeral home has been named. No suspect has been publicly identified. As of early November 2025, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department had not responded to media requests for comment. The Bureau of Land Management confirmed an active investigation and offered little else. Federal officials, by December, were described as offering few answers. And that's when Celena DiLullo entered the picture. DiLullo serves as president of Palm Mortuaries and Cemeteries, a long-established funeral company in the Las Vegas area. When she learned what had surfaced in the desert, she did something that, under the circumstances, no law required her to do. She volunteered. Palm Mortuaries would take custody of all 315 piles at no cost to anyone and bring them home. On a Wednesday in late October, DiLullo drove out to the site with a team. 11 funeral industry professionals had volunteered to help. Among them stood Stephanie McGee, the executive director of the Nevada Funeral and Cemetery Services Board, the state body that regulates the very industry now suspected of causing this. They knelt in the dirt. They worked slowly. Each pile was scooped carefully into its own bag. Each bag went into its own urn. 315 times they performed this ritual under the desert sun. 315 strangers, each one given, for the first time in who knows how long, an act of care. When she spoke to KLAS afterward, DiLullo did not sound angry. She sounded tired and sad, in the specific way that people in her profession are sometimes sad. I think most of us just felt like, what a shame, she told them. And then, more carefully, she offered something that has lingered in the air ever since. I don't know if it was the wishes of these people to be out. So, that's kind of what goes through my mind. She did not know who they were. She did not know what they had wanted. She did not know if a daughter somewhere had been told that her father's ashes were waiting at the funeral home, only for those ashes to have ended up, instead, on the ground 60 miles south of the Strip. The urns traveled to one of Palm's cemeteries and were placed in a crypt. The plan, as DiLullo described it, was to keep them there, to hold them, so that families could come, so that if anyone was searching, there would be a place to search. Then came the second revelation, the one that turned a strange crime into something closer to a portrait of America itself. Of the 315 piles, only 3 could be identified. 3. Stephanie McGee, the regulator who had knelt in the dirt, declined to say what identifying information had been recovered with those 3 individuals. A tag, a document, a name on a fragment of plastic, something. But for the other 312, there was nothing. No name, no date, no clue. And as the weeks passed and the story spread across national news, something else became clear. No one was coming forward. By December 8, 2025, when Outside Online published a comprehensive update on the case, not a single family had stepped forward to claim a loved one. Not one. The crypt at Palm Mortuaries sat full of strangers, and outside its doors, the country went about its business. How can that be possible? 315 people vanishing into the desert, and not a single relative noticing. The answer is uncomfortable, and it points to something most Americans do not know about the way we now die. For most of American history, the dead were buried. Cremation was rare. In 1960, fewer than 4% of Americans were cremated. But over the past 60 years, a quiet revolution has unfolded. Around the year 2015, for the first time in the nation's history, cremation surpassed burial. The National Funeral Directors Association now projects that, by the year 2035, more than 75% of Americans will choose cremation. It is faster. It is cheaper. It does not require a plot of earth or a stone, or a place where children have to drive to remember. In many ways, it is the death practice of a mobile, scattered modern country. But here's the thing. It has created a logistical problem that the funeral industry rarely discusses in public. Once a body is reduced to a small box of pulverized bone, what happens to that box if no one comes to pick it up? What happens if the family lives in another state? What happens if the family was already estranged, or already exhausted, or already broken by the years of caregiving that preceded the death? What happens if no one feels strong enough to drive back to the funeral home and sign a form? The expert quoted in Outside Online, identified only by the surname Can, put it plainly. A lot of people don't know what to do with the ashes once they have them. Some just never return and assume the funeral home will take care of them. Unfortunately, this is an infrastructure issue for funeral homes, and is more common than you might imagine. Across the United States, in storage rooms behind chapels, in cardboard boxes stacked on metal shelves, in closets and back offices and warehouses, millions of sets of cremated remains sit unclaimed. Millions. People whose families paid for the cremation, received the call that the ashes were ready, and then simply never came. Years pass. Decades pass, the boxes accumulate, the funeral home owners age, the businesses change hands, and eventually, someone has to decide what to do with the dead that no one wanted. Nevada state law requires funeral operators to preserve what it calls the dignity of any remains in their care. It does not specify in granular detail what that means. It does not provide a hotline for the moment when a closet is full and a business is failing and the shelves are sagging under the weight of forgotten human beings. What was uncovered outside Searchlight may be the most extreme manifestation of that quiet crisis ever found on American soil. But it is unlikely to be unique. It is simply the one that, on a July morning, a man happened to see. Consider for a moment what this means for the families. If you are watching this, and you have ever paid a funeral home to cremate someone you loved, and you chose, for whatever reason, not to take the ashes home, where are they now? Maybe on a shelf, maybe in a crypt, maybe in the desert. The funeral home you trusted may still be in business, or it may have closed, sold, dissolved, and passed its inventory to someone else. The chain of custody on the most sacred object a family can hold is, in the United States, almost entirely a matter of trust. And in Searchlight, that trust failed 315 times. The investigation continues. The Bureau of Land Management has not announced any arrests. No funeral home has been publicly accused. The zip ties and urn fragments sit in evidence bags. The crypt at Palm Mortuaries holds its strangers. Celena DiLullo, when she speaks about it, returns to the same thought. I think it's important to us to make sure that these people are not forgotten and not left. She told KLAS, "It's important to our community and our profession that we demonstrate how much we do care about these people." There is a particular weight to that sentence. These people, not these remains, not these piles, these people. Each one a life that included a first day of school and a favorite song, and a face that someone at some point leaned in to kiss goodbye. Each one a person who chose, or whose family chose, the increasingly American option of being burned rather than buried. Each one a person who trusted, in the end, that the institution they had paid would carry that final responsibility with care. The desert outside Searchlight is quiet again. The piles are gone. The wind moves across the gravel as it has for 10,000 years. Somewhere in the Las Vegas area, in a crypt that few will ever visit, 315 urns wait in rows. 3 of them carry names. The rest are simply numbered. They sit there in the dark, in the cool, in the silence, holding the question that no investigation can fully answer. Who were you, and why did no one come to bring you home?